All right. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a programming language, and what that means is, let's look at it this way. If you already know HTML and CSS, then you know that HTML is used for the structure of websites, while CSS is used for the styling. Now, when we talk about programming language, we're referring to languages that we can use dynamically, meaning that if we can give it conditional statements, unlike languages like HTML where you can't really do that. So what JavaScript is essentially a programming language, which means you can tell it, okay, based on certain conditions, do this or do that, and then it gives that instructions to the computer. Now, it was founded by this guy on your screen called Brendan Ike in the 1990s by this company called Netscape. Now, they were a very big internet company in the early 2000s and late 1990s, and they were looking for a programming language to bring interactivity to the web, and JavaScript did that for them. And when JavaScript was created, it was originally not called JavaScript. It was they were looking for names to call it, and so a lot of names were flying around. There was Mocha scripts. There were different names out there. So they eventually settled on JavaScript because of this programming language. This one you're seeing on your screen, Java. Now, if you're old enough, you probably remember there used to be a time when we had phones that weren't as smart as the ones you currently have today, and they ran an operating system called Java. If you remember Nokia phones, you heard of Java, Symbian. Java used to be very, very popular back then, and it's still quite popular. It's a very versatile language. So in order to capture, to ride on the wave of popularity that Java had, they decided to add scripts to the name of the back end of it and named it JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is different from Java. There are two different programming languages for two different use cases. While Java was created for a more robust use, and if we are to talk about it, if you have to pick the bright setting for Java in today's programming landscape, it's probably backend, creating backend for applications. However, for JavaScript, it was created for interactivity on the web, and of course, we all know that it has gone beyond that. So now, to understand how JavaScript works, I'm going to use this image right here. Now, whenever you hit a website, so let's say you go into your browser and you type example.com or youtube.com or whatever site you want to look for, your browser sends a request to the server, which is that's arrow you're seeing right now. It goes to the server, and then the server is able to look at the request and determine, okay, where did it come from, what has the what are the contents of the request. So the browser will know who's sending the request, and all the other things it would need to determine what to return back to your browser. So of course, if you're going to a site like youtube.com, you're typically sending your name, your account information, and all of those things, so it determines what to show you. Now, when it does that, it sends a request back, which you can see in this image. And in this image, you're seeing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is sending back. Now, of course, we all know HTML is used for the structure of the website, CSS is going to be used for the styling, but JavaScript is going to actually be used to carry out computations on your browser. What does that mean? It means that certain things that would happen on your browser without the server being aware of is typically done with JavaScript. Now, let me just paint a picture for you. Look at this image right now on your screen. Hello world. Now, if you're using HTML, you know that the text is going to be something like H1 tag or H2 tag, which are the header tags. You also know that the CSS is obviously going to be affecting the background color, the text color, and we can choose to change the background color to a shade of blue and then text color to a shade of, let's say, red or whatever you prefer. Now, if we decide that we want to take a step further, and let's say whenever the user hovers over the text should spin around. You can't do that with just HTML and CSS, because with HTML, you can't do much about this time with just HTML. You need to add CSS. So now, if you're going to do that with CSS, it means that you're going to say, okay, turn it, rotate it, let's say 45 degrees, so degrees, and keep on doing that till it goes round. Now, imagine having to do that with HTML and CSS. It means that you're probably going to have to create multiple pages, and the mental gymnastics you're going to do to work around CSS just to get that to work is going to be quite a lot. But using JavaScript, you can just simply say, hey, if the user hovers over this, spin it around. Now, I'm very aware that if you've looked into certain parts of the internet like CodePen, you've seen people do amazing things with CSS. And yes, you can do things that actually would look like people are like used JavaScript. But typically, JavaScript is best for conditional statements. In fact, it was built for that. It's a programming language, which means that if you want to create something interactive like that, you're going to use JavaScript. Now, the question is, why else? Why would you use JavaScript? Why is it so popular to be used on the web? Now, of course, I've told you the importance of JavaScript, but why we still use JavaScript today and why it's very popular is because JavaScript can run almost everywhere. There's a saying that if it can run JavaScript, it will eventually run JavaScript. At Wood's law. Now, essentially, we use with JavaScript in the modern web landscape. We have JavaScript for the front end, which was what I just explained. The idea of spinning the text, that's front end behavior. Now, the JavaScript on the back end is the server we talked about earlier. So, if you are to do the functionality I explained earlier of the text spinning, it means that you would have had to send several requests to the server, and the server will have to send all those requests back to the browser to tell it at every point in time how to spin. Now imagine doing that when you're paying for a hosting plan that it charges you per request. Your cost is going to run up. So you typically do things like that with JavaScript. Now that's just like a brief intro into JavaScript. There's a lot more you can do with it, and we're going to look into that in the next couple of lessons.